Ian Rappaport from NFL Network. You're killing me, Smalls.
This is Bucky Brooks of the NFL Network. You're killing me, Smalls.
Hey, this is Chris Heck, president of the 76ers. I just want to say, you're killing me, Smalls.
Hey, this is former Sixer and Tar Heel George Lynch. Smalls, you're killing me.
Hi, this is Kenny Albert. You're killing me, Smalls.
You're killing me, Smalls.
All right, welcome to another episode of the Killing Me Smalls podcast. I am your host, Mike Small. As you can see, you can follow me on Twitter at Real Mike Small, and also subscribe to the Painted Lines, and you get really cool podcasts and really cool content. And really excited about this one today. As you can see, I have got Irving Fryar with me. Irving and I met a couple of weeks ago at a charity event. He was gracious enough to join the podcast.
Can I say it like everybody else? You're killing me, Smalls.
We'll see if I'm killing you by the end. Right now, I'm killing you a little bit, but I might be really killing you by the end. So I am an unapologetic Miami Dolphin fan, and I loved having Irving Fryar as one of the Miami Dolphins. Hated going against him when he was on the Patriots, and certainly had a lot of fun watching him when he was with the Philadelphia Eagles. And Irving, welcome to the show. I appreciate you joining.
Mike, not a problem at all. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm watching listening and watching all those people in your introduction. You're killing me, Smalls. I'm like, okay, wait a minute. Why does he have me on here? We're good though. Nothing's off limits, Mike. Just let's have a lot of fun.
Yeah, I really want to make this kind of this is your life, because you've had a really fascinating life, and you've been through some of the highest highs, some of the lowest lows, and are really, in my opinion, very impressive the way you give back and talk to people and educate people. And you, by the way, Irving's got a fantastic podcast of his own. It's on YouTube, and it airs live every Friday at noon, called The Fryar Place, F-R-Y-A-R.
Yep, ER's a chicken.
You to check it out. How'd you get into that? I want to start from the beginning, but let's start with the podcast. How did you get going on that, and what was the impetus?
I actually got into the podcast because when COVID came into existence, and we all got kicked out of wherever we were, whether it was work or the church. I'm a pastor, so we were mandated. We couldn't be and have gatherings or anything like that. So now we as pastors, we had to figure out, if we didn't already have some kind of virtual connection with our members, we had to figure out how to present virtually. So we did that and put some cameras and the things that we needed to be able to present well from the church on our days of service. But we were still doing Bible studies during the week on Tuesday. And I was doing Bible studies with my phone on Facebook, our Facebook page, the church's Facebook page. So we have church on Saturdays. We're Christians who just can't wait till Sunday. We have church on Saturdays. So on Sundays, I'll get up and I would watch other pastors that I knew and what they were doing, how they were presenting, and what their stuff sounded and looked like, what their services sounded like and looked like. And one of my friends over in Philadelphia, the first couple of weeks of COVID, he was out of the sanctuary, or in the sanctuary, using his phone just like we were. So I'm like, okay, all right, we're not doing too bad. Then maybe like 3 weeks later, I tuned into him, and he was in a studio like this. He's got a mic like this, and he sounds real good. I'm like, what in the world? So I called him and asked him, what are you doing? What did you get? How do I do that? Because that's what I want to be able to do my Bible study with, so we have the same quality at Bible study that we did at the church. So I originally started out doing this just for the church. But then the Lord put on my heart to start a podcast. I put all this money and effort and energy into this equipment here in the studio. So the Lord unctioned me to start a podcast, and we started a podcast called The Fryar Place last July. It's not even a year old yet. On July 2nd, every Friday, starting every Friday, we have it live on YouTube, and we've been doing pretty well since. I've had a plethora of guests, from Hall of Fame football players to experienced therapists to some of my family members, and it's been just a ball doing and very informative with a lot of good, positive content.
Well, I encourage everybody to check it out. Again, Fridays at noon on YouTube, The Fryar Place. So We were part of a charity event a couple of weeks ago. It was a really wonderful event. My friend Cliff Baker invited me to moderate it, which I really appreciated.
You did a good job too.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I had a lot of fun. It was a good crew. One of the cool highlights was listening to you and your story. And I'd like to take everybody through it. I think what a lot of people would be fascinated to know is, you went to Rancocas Valley High School. I'm a Lenape graduate, so we were rivals.
We're enemies, rivals, just enemies.
Arch enemies.
Not rivals, enemies.
Enemies. I don't think we were worth a damn when you were in school, so I don't think we were a rival.
No, Lenape they were pretty good. They were okay.
Pretty good?
Yeah, you couldn't sleep on Lenape. No, you couldn't go to sleep on Lenape. They brought it. We beat them most of the time, but you had to play. You couldn't just show up.
Well, we weren't great when I was there. I was about 3-4 years after you. But what's interesting to me is you had an incredible football career. Incredible. As a matter of fact, we're going to talk about why you're not in the Hall of Fame, which I don't understand, quite frankly, when I look at your numbers and know who you were up against in your peer group. We'll talk about that later.
Okay.
What's interesting to me is you didn't even want to play football. You wanted to be a Marine. Can you tell that story?
Well, yeah, I just growing up, I had a couple of uncles who at certain points in my life, one or the other was living with me. And those were the years of my life between the ages of probably 7 years old and the time I got out of high school. So they were both Marines. One had gone to Vietnam. He married my mother's sister and they both lived with us. He came back. He went to Vietnam at 6'3". He came back with no legs. So obviously, and I had a really good relationship with him because he had no legs, but he played in this wheelchair basketball league. And that was phenomenal. And I was the ball boy and we would travel all over the place. He had this Volkswagen that he would drive with a hand control underneath the steering wheel. He would pull back on it to accelerate and he'd push with his outside part of his hand to brake. So it was a hand controlled car, Volkswagen, and we were all over the place. I spent hours and hours and hours of time with Uncle Lionel, was his name. And man, he was my hero. And then my mother's younger brother, he was also a Marine. He didn't fight in the war, but that was what I was around in terms of men. My father worked all the time. I probably didn't see my father from the age of 7 to 17. We lived in the same house because he was at work all the time. So they were my examples of what manhood was really all about. And they are who I grew up wanting to be like. And so, I played sports and I was good at sports. I was a baseball player and basketball player and football player. I ran track, and everything that I did athletically, I did pretty much with ease. And, I really just didn't want to go to college just to go to college. And I didn't know that I was going to be offered scholarships coming out of high school, going into college, but I was. And I don't know if you know who Mike Rozier is or not. Mike came out of Camden.
From Camden.
Yep.
Yeah.
Mike and our families, his grandmother lived right next to us. So Mike and I grew up together. I saw him all the time. We played against each other in high school. We were getting recruited by the same schools. So I made a decision because my mother said, you need to go to school. Nobody in our family has ever gone to college before. You need to go. You have an opportunity to get a scholarship. They're going to pay for everything. Go to college. So I decided wherever Mike chose to go, since we were being recruited by the same schools, that's where I would go. So Mike had narrowed it down, I believe, to Pittsburgh, the University of Pittsburgh, which if we had gone there, Dan would have been there. He had narrowed it down to Pittsburgh.
We'll talk about Dan for sure.
Yeah. He narrowed it down to Pittsburgh and Nebraska because Mike, his grades weren't good enough to go right into the university. He had to go to a JUCO first. And I guess Nebraska had the better of the two JUCO program that they used as a farm team or, to farm their guys into the University of Nebraska. That was at Coffeyville. So Mike chose Nebraska. So I went to Nebraska. And in Nebraska, my plan was to, go to school, graduate with my degree in meteorology is what I took. I wanted to graduate with a degree in meteorology and go into the Marines as an officer. That was my plan.
Not a weatherman.
No, not a weatherman. No, not a weatherman.
So,
Marine,
so you get
weatherman,
recruited. Yeah.
So
go ahead.
No, I always thought.
I mean, the legendary Tom Osborne comes
yeah.
and recruits you.
Mhm.
You go play for him. You play for national championships. And when did you realize that, this might not be, I might be pretty good at this. I might be really good at this to the point where I could make a lot of money doing it.
I never thought that. I never thought that I was good enough to be a professional. I always knew that I could play.
I mean, until when though? It had to hit you at some point.
No,
you were the number 1 pick in the draft.
I guess at that
some
point
someone had to be like, "You're really good."
I guess that's when it hit me that okay, I must play pretty well because I'm the first pick. So, and at the same, but remember this, which kind of not tainted the fact that I was the number 1 pick, but the USFL was in full effect at that time as well. Right. So they were snatching a lot of guys who normally would have gone to the NFL. So I really didn't count much towards it that I was the first pick because I was trying to go to the USFL too. The Generals drafted me, but Donald Trump wouldn't guarantee my contract. So I didn't go into the USFL. I went to the NFL. So I really didn't. I really didn't count myself. I didn't tout myself that high because I knew there were other guys. I mean, Mike Rozier was in my class. Steve Young was in my class. Reggie White was in my class. Bruce Smith was in my class. I had guys in my class. Right? Yeah, I had guys in my class that they're Hall of Famers. So, and they were great players back then. And I knew they were great players. So I really didn't see myself like that because I knew probably if the USFL wasn't in full effect, they probably would have been drafted before me.
Trump was throwing around a lot of money back then. Now he paid Herschel Walker. He paid Doug Flutie. Why would he guarantee your contract?
I don't know. Maybe he knew that the league, because those guys that were in, they ended up getting double for the trouble. Once the USFL, because they were guaranteeing contracts, the USFL, to get guys to come out of the NFL or not go to the NFL to come to the USFL. Yeah, they had to. So he wouldn't guarantee mine. I don't know why, but he wouldn't. I don't know if he foresaw the fact that the USFL wasn't going to make it the next few years or not. Maybe he knew something that everybody else didn't know. Maybe, I don't know. But for whatever reason, he would not guarantee my contract.
Interesting. So you're the number 1 pick of the New England Patriots.
Mm-hmm.
Had you ever been to Boston before that?
Never been to Boston. And
by the way, had you ever been to Nebraska before you went there?
No, I had never been really out of New Jersey before I went to Nebraska. The first time I went on a flight was to Nebraska. I hadn't been out of New Jersey, but yeah, Nebraska was different. And I remember I thought about this the other day. We didn't have these the apps in the phone where you have the satellite. What do you have? I'm losing my train of thought. The apps we have, the navigation systems. We didn't have navigation systems back then. And I got to training camp. When I went to New England, the first time I went to New England, besides them flying me up there, I drove to training camp. And I drove to training camp using a map. We didn't have navigation systems. And I got there okay, never got lost. It's amazing technology now and the difference between, 20, 30 years ago and today.
Yeah, I tell my kids all the time that, my sales career, we had those big Hagerstrom maps and I'm highlighting streets in Brooklyn, New York. And they're like, a Hager what? A map? Why would you have to do that when you just look on your phone? Nah, they're not getting that.
Well, I'm old enough to remember when TV went off at midnight and you didn't have to pay for TV. You didn't have to pay for television. You had 3 channels, 6, 3, and 10, yep. ABC, NBC, and CBS. And you had a couple of UHF channels.
48
17,
and 29 and 17.
48, 29, right? 17. Yeah. And then
I only do that. I remember Ultraman on 17. And
there you go.
Phillies were on 29, right?
and TV at midnight, they played the national anthem. And then you'd see those bars and
that was it.
That was it for the night.
Talk about your career at Nebraska. I mean, obviously it was an amazing one in terms of, you played for a national championship. Mm-hmm. You were the number 1 pick in the draft. Looking back on that, are you glad you chose Nebraska? Obviously you did it, with Mike Rozier in mind. Any regrets?
No regrets at all. In fact, I tell my wife all the time, if the Lord allows me to leave New Jersey, we're going to Nebraska. I loved the people there. I love the place. It's more populated now than obviously than it was when I went to school back in the early 80s. But I love being out there. Yeah, it's cold. Yeah, it's the Midwest. But man, that was a really, really good life experience for me as a young man. I would not change that for anything. Yeah, not everything was good and not everything turned out like we would love for it to have turned out. But I love being there. Not for the football either. It was the people, it was the environment, it was the atmosphere, it was just the all around good feeling. Every time I go out there, no matter how cold it is, man, it's good being there. So that was a great experience for me. Yes, I got lonely. Trust me, I was 17 years old. I graduated from high school at 17 years old, and I reported to the University of Nebraska when I was still 17 years old. And that was my first time away from home. So yeah, it was, it got lonely and it was emotional at times, but it really was a great experience for me, and it helped me tremendously.
Did you, with regards to Tom Osborne, is there something you could tell me that nobody would know about him? I mean, obviously he had a legendary career and, capped off by, winning a couple of national championships. What wouldn't we know about Tom Osborne that we should know, good or bad?
Well, there's nothing bad about Tom that I could say, really. I spent a lot of time with him, and I never saw, even when he got angry, he couldn't even get angry and really be angry. He was funny. Dadgummit. That was the worst it got for Tom. Dadgummit. That's what he would say.
A little Roy Williams in him.
Yeah. Here's what I know about Tom. I could pick up my phone right now and call Tom, and he'll pick up the phone. He'll answer the phone. How you doing, Irving? I'm doing all right, Coach. How you doing? Oh, I'm fine. Where you at? Oh, I'm home, Coach. What you doing? Oh, I'm out fishing, whatever he's doing. But he does that. He's that way, not with just me, but probably a countless number of athletes who have played for him. We have access to him, and he really genuinely cares about us. Some of the things I've gone through in my life since leaving the University of Nebraska, he's called and checked on me to make sure I was all right, to see if I needed anything, if there was anything that he can do. When I went to prison, before I went to prison, I really, from between the conviction and the sentencing, I guess there was like a month period of time. I really never thought I was going, because it was just a farce of a trial. It was crazy. And
we'll get into that. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll get into it. But during that time, he wrote a letter for me to the judge. He wrote a letter for me to the judge.
Unsolicited, huh?
Yeah, but you know what? The judge sat down at the sentencing and said, you know what? I got this pile of letters. A whole bunch of people wrote letters for me, but I didn't read any of them. I'm like,
Thanks,
okay,
Judge.
this is not going to go well. And she said, before she sentenced me, she said, Mr. Fryar, I would have found you innocent. That's what she said. And when we talk about this, I'm going to give you all facts. I'm not going to give you my opinion. I'm going to tell you what people can go, if they would take the time before they come to a conclusion, if they would take the time to seek out the facts. I will tell you what the facts are, and they can go, and it's documented. They can look it up and read it in the case, in the trial, because it's all documented. It was, and when I finish telling you about some of this, you'll be like, yeah. You went to prison for that?
I have read a little bit about it, and I am anxious to talk to you about it. I want to just pick this up though, because I think a lot of people are going to be interested in your football career, and I want to talk about that a little bit. But I definitely want to make sure we get there.
Right, no problem. So, look, I tried to tell.
Yeah.
I didn't want to before. When I first got out of prison, I really shied away from even saying anything or even being around people, because it was just, I was very angry. But people, I know people are out there trying to tell my story. They don't know what the story is. So I don't have a problem telling the story, because it's my story.
Speaking of stories, one that you told me that I really enjoyed was you were at New England, and your career was off to a bit of a slow start. I mean, you weren't doing terrible, but you weren't an all-pro at that point.
Right.
Until you heard one commentator who we all listen to, and the people in Philadelphia can't stand for some reason. He's one of those guys that when you go on Twitter, whenever he's on, people are just killing him, especially when the Eagles are playing.
Really?
Chris Collinsworth.
Yes.
So tell me what he said that changed your career.
Well, Chris was new into the commentating profession. And I guess that was something he kind of, I don't think he kickstarted it, but there were some former players, I guess, who had been commentators before, but he was really advancing. He was doing well. Mm-hmm. And I know, as having been a commentator before with CNNSI when I first retired, one of the questions they ask you, or one of the things they want to know, if you're going to be able to analyze these games, are you going to be able to criticize constructive criticism with the players? You might have played with some of these guys before. They may know you. Are you going to be able to criticize these guys? You have to be able to do that. So one of the games about my fourth or fifth year in the league, somewhere around there, Chris Collinsworth was doing one of our games. I was playing in New England, and he said that I was a first round draft choice bust, that I wouldn't make it past 7 years, that I would be, and I had gotten in trouble a couple of times prior to that in my first couple of years. But he said I wouldn't make it past year 7, and that I was a bust, that I was a waste for the New England Patriots, a very disappointment, and so on and so forth. And when I heard that, it struck a nerve. It really struck a nerve that did not stop vibrating for the next 10, 15 years. It really disturbed me. I should thank Chris Collinsworth because it really turned out to be a blessing, because it was a driving factor for me that I'm a disappointment? No, I'm not. No. And I'm going to show you. So it was like somebody telling you can't do something and you proving that you can. So it really turned out to be a blessing, because I did go on and play another, I played 17 years, and I guess that was around my 5th year. So I played another 12 years trying to prove people wrong, including Chris Collinsworth.
Did you ever tell him?
I did tell him, and this is when I was younger and stupid. I think he can't. No, seriously, because I would talk with him now. In fact, I have a picture of me and Chris. I was on the set after I retired. I went on the set with me and Chris Collinsworth and James Brown, Terry Bradshaw, and Howie Long. I got a picture of the 4 of us, 5 of us. But at first, I think maybe like the next year, he came to do another game and wanted to talk to me before the game, and I wouldn't talk to him. So, and I let him know why, because you said this. So yes, I did let him know, and we talked about it actually when I went to go see him not to see him, but to be on the set in the studio. I let him know again, and I told him, thank you. You were successful, and you could let him know he was a motivator. For I told him thank you.
Or did you get mad at him?
No, I told him thank you.
Yeah,
I told him thank you. So
I think that's a great story. What a lesson in humility, right?
Well, yeah, for sure. And then, it also, people find different ways to motivate themselves. You got to find a reason to go forward. For me, it was always, negativity towards me. That was always one of the things. And even to today, negativity towards me just makes me want to work harder, to do better, to prove people wrong.
That New England team went to the Super Bowl and
got
waxed by the Bears, but you did catch the only touchdown for the Patriots.
Yeah.
Pretty cool.
Yeah, that was all right.
That was a weird game. Well, I still remember
I saw that game again when we were at the I think I might have mentioned it when we were at the fundraiser a couple of weeks ago. I saw that game probably 5 or 6, maybe 7 months ago. And man, I didn't remember most of what happened. We played really, really bad. And when I say really, really, really bad, we played out of character. We were a wild card team, and we won 3 games, including against the Raiders out in LA to get to the Super Bowl. And we just did things. We didn't kill ourselves. We didn't hurt ourselves. We didn't make a whole lot of mistakes. We weren't a high scoring team. We weren't real explosive, but we just didn't make a lot of mistakes. And when we got to that Super Bowl, man, we were fumbling the ball. Guys were dropping passes. Interceptions were being thrown. Guys were missing tackles. There were interceptions right in guys' hands. They were dropping them. There were opportunities for us, particularly in the beginning of that game, to go ahead by a couple of touchdowns that, by our own mistakes, by our own schleprockness, is that a word?
It is now.
By us being like a schlep rock, we just messed it up. We messed it up. So I didn't remember all of that negative stuff happening. We played bad. We really did.
Why'd you leave New England and go to Miami?
I left New England because, for one, I wasn't having fun in New England. Like I said, early in my career, I got in some issues that, being in the wrong place, the wrong time, that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. And I wasn't happy. And it didn't have anything to do with numbers, like catching balls or statistics or anything like that. I just wasn't happy there. I wanted to start over somewhere else. I needed a new start, a fresh start. And so who was it? I forget the name of the coach's name. He used to coach for the Giants. And he came to Parcells. There it is. How can I forget his name? Parcells. Raymond Berry was fired. Rod Russ came in. I forget when Dick McPherson came in, but Dick McPherson came in. There was a lot of coaching changes. Yeah. And then Parcells came in. And when Parcells came in, that's when he brought in the draft, I believe it was, Drew Bledsoe. But during that offseason, Parcells was, interacting with the media. And he said in the newspaper, that's why I read it, that any of us who were current players on the team, if we didn't want to be there, he'd let us go. So next day I was in his office sitting in front of his desk. And I said, I don't want to be here, coach. It has nothing to do with you. It's time for me to go. I don't want to go. I don't want to be here. So he told me, if you can get 2 first-round draft choices for you, I'll let you go. We made a couple calls. My agent made a couple of calls. It was between Dallas. Man, I should have went to Dallas. Between Dallas and Miami. And we chose Miami. Now I'll tell you a funny story. You want to know a funny story?
Nobody wants Dallas.
Man, I could have had 2 Super Bowl rings. It would have been Irving and Irvin.
Yeah, that would have been pretty dynamic.
Yeah, man. Good gracious. I didn't know it was that close. But anyway, funny story. When I decided that I really wanted to get out of New England, it was about probably 3 years before I actually got traded out of New England. So about my 6th year, obviously we're in the AFC East. So we would play the Miami Dolphins twice a year, once at home, once away. When I had made up in my mind I wanted to go, after every game, starting that year, that 6th year, I would go up to Coach Shula after the game and say, Coach, I need to get out of here. You got to get me out of here. I need to get out of here. You got to get me out of here. And he'd laugh at me. He'd shake my hand and he just laugh. And then he traded for me. And then when I got down to Miami, I was like, Coach, thanks for getting me out of here. We had a good time on that day.
I guess that doesn't count as tampering. I
don't know if it does or not, but he got me out of there.
So you played for the legendary Tom Osborne, the legendary Don Shula.
Yes.
You did say that I was surprised when we were talking about, playing with Dan Marino and Shula and the Dolphins.
Yeah.
You felt like Shula kind of treated people differently in terms of where Marino got a lot of the favoritism treatment, and it wasn't the same. Is that how you would describe it?
Well, yeah. I mean, he was Dan, and
he was special.
Coach Shula and Dan had a special relationship, and some of the things that we had to do, Dan didn't have to do, which being a part of the team and being a part of those who were doing, as opposed to what Dan didn't have to do, guys talk, and it didn't turn out favorable for Dan, as a teammate. So guys were not happy about that. When we went into train, when we went into test for training camp, we had to run certain things, we had to lift a certain amount, we had to do certain things. that you had to train for to be ready so you could pass the test. Dan didn't have to do all that stuff. So when he didn't, the other guys on the team, and Dan was the only one that didn't have to do it. The other guys on the team weren't happy about that. I wasn't either, because I mean, if we're going to do this together, I need to know that if I'm going to lay out for that ball, I need to know, you know, I'm giving my body up and risking myself for someone that at least cares about me.
Looking back on it, could it have been, you know, could there have been a players only meeting where you called him out, or could because I'm assuming,
good luck with that.
Based on what you're telling me, that chemistry was an issue based on that. Or was it?
You know what? There was chemistry, but chemistry had a ceiling. When and I would bet the house on this. I don't gamble, but teams that win and that are successful, particularly over a period of time, an extended period of time, they're like a family. When we went to the Super Bowl that year, I mean, I still stay in contact with those guys that are on that team. With guys that are on that team, Ronnie Lepet, Tony Collins, Roland James, Stanley Morgan, Stephen Starring, Cedric Jones, guys, Derwin Williams, guys that were on that team, I still stay in contact with, because we went over one another's houses. We spent a lot of time together off the football field. We went out together. Our wives knew each other. We were like family, and it took our game to another level because we genuinely cared about each other. And that's the ceiling that was down in Miami, because there just was that division between Dan and the team.
But man, did you guys have chemistry?
Oh, we had chemistry on the field. We were
from day one. You guys were. I would look. Duper and Clayton are great receivers. I'd argue you were about the best receiver he ever had.
Well, I don't know about that, but we did good.
I watched every one of his games.
We did do good.
Duper and Clayton were great. I thought you were more dynamic.
Well, we did some great things. We did. And for me, it was just a whole new way of playing football, man. When I came out of college, I was a wingback in college. So I was in a 3-point stance. Even when I split out, I was in a 3-point stance, like a track stance at the University of Nebraska, because I was a wingback. So when I got to New England, now I have to learn how to be a wide receiver. Yes, I could catch the ball, but I did not know how to run routes. I didn't really run routes at Nebraska. We didn't have any like one-on-one drills with defensive backs running routes and, you know, strategizing with the quarterback. No, none of that. I did none of that at Nebraska. So now I'm at New England, and we really didn't throw the ball. We didn't throw the ball nearly as much as they throw the ball today. We were a running team. The year before I came to New England was the #1 rushing team in the league. We had Tony Collins and Craig James and Robert Weathers. These were guys, we were running the ball first. John Stevens, we were running the ball first. So back then, if you caught 70 balls, you were going to the Pro Bowl. Those were Pro Bowl numbers. You catch 70
now
balls
you get
now.
Cut with 70, right?
Well, you get cut, or you're the third or fourth receiver, you know, catching 70 balls. You know, they're catching 100 balls now, 120 balls, 130 balls. So back then, we didn't throw the ball nearly as much as they throw the ball now. So that was part of the reason why my numbers were down. Yes, I was a punt returner. My first Pro Bowl, I went as a punt returner, but it was different. And when we called a play in the huddle at New England, there were no audibles. We came to the line of scrimmage. If the defense just so happened to be in the right defense to stop the play we called in the huddle, we chalked that one up as a loss, and we huddled back up and ran the next play. But there was no at the line audibles. Steve Grogan, Tony Eason, Tom Ramsey, they did none of that. There was none of that my whole time in New England. I get to Miami, man, I'm my first day in training camp.
He was winging it, right?
Listen, my first day in training camp, I'm bang, boom, bap. I'm just killing them. And Shula walks up to me and he says, "Irving, what are you doing?" I said, "I'm killing y'all just like I was when I was at New England. I'm killing you. All these DBs, they can't cover me. I'm killing them." He said, No. Why are you running so fast?" I said, "Because I'm fast. That's why I run fast, because I'm fast. That's what I do, coach. Come on." And he said, "No, Irving, no. You have to take your and this was absolute shock to me. I'd never heard this before. He said, "You have to take your time, set your guy up. Dan has to make a guy miss. The line has to hold him, give him time to throw. He got to make a guy miss. and get you the ball. I'm like, what? I was taught in New England, you had to hurry up and get open. Every practice in New England, we had a stopwatch during practice. And when there was a passing play, if the ball wasn't gone at 2.3 seconds, it was considered a sack. So we were rushing to hurry up and try to get open. When I got to Miami, he's like, weave and dip and do all this stuff and make your guy. I'm like, what? And then we get to the line of scrimmage, and it doesn't matter what play was called in the huddle. If Dan gets up to the line of scrimmage and he sees something he likes, he'll give me a hand signal. Now it's just he and I playing catch.
Yeah.
The play is off. That's what happened that first game against New England. It was fourth and 5 with about 45, maybe minutes, something left on the clock. It was in the fourth quarter. And if we didn't get the first down, we're done. We're on our own 45. We come up to the line of scrimmage. There were trips on the left. I was on the right by myself. Dan came up to the line of scrimmage and saw that I had one-on-one. Forget the play he called in the huddle. He gives me a go signal. Bang, ball snap, throws me a go, touchdown. We win the game. To me, that was not fair. I'm like, this is not fair.
He was incredible to watch.
Well, so my career took off. And then, when I came to Philadelphia, same thing. Yeah. You had audibles and they would change plays at the line of scrimmage, but the first 9 years of my career, I had none of that. There was never any of that.
You had some good years in Philadelphia too.
John Gruden.
Years in Philadelphia.
Gruden was the offensive coordinator. I was with the West Coast offense, and I was the featured receiver. So I was catching 80 balls a year, which was good. I was old, but it was good.
Well, let me give you a couple of stats that I'm sure you're aware of. Caught a touchdown from 19 different quarterbacks. Mm-hmm. You are the first player to record a touchdown in 17 consecutive seasons, broken only by the great Jerry Rice, who ended up with 20. You are the oldest player to score 4 touchdowns in a game. And you got 4 of your 5 Pro Bowls after the age of 30. Yeah. So clearly you figured it out at some point. Thank you, Chris Collins. Collinsworth, rather.
That 4 touchdown game was against Miami, too.
Yeah, I remember it. Yeah,
Sorry.
I do. I remember it. I can't believe we let you go.
Sorry.
You told me why, right? You didn't want to play for Jimmy Johnson?
No, I didn't want to play for Jimmy, and Shula retired. So, I just wanted to go. I didn't want to stay there. I didn't know Jimmy, but I didn't get a good feeling about him. It's the same reason why I left the Redskins at the time. Now they're the Commanders. I don't know why they named the guys Commanders. But anyway.
Like Washington football team.
Yeah, he should have left it just the football team. Yeah. But I left Washington because Marty Schottenheimer came in as the head coach. Norv Turner was the coach when I was there. 1.5 of the 2 years I was there. And then Terry Ribisky took over as the interim coach the last half of the season, my second season. But then they brought Marty Schottenheimer in, and he asked me to stay, offered me a contract, but I said no. I didn't have good feelings about him either.
And that was it.
That was it.
That was the end. Now I want to get back to you. So after football, what was life like for you at first after football, and how did it land into some of the trouble that you had been through?
Oh, well, at first when I retired, I was
It was great at first, right?
Well, yeah, I was doing. I started off with CNNSI. Yeah, I was a analyst with Trev Alberts and Bob Lorenz down in Atlanta at CNNSI, and we did that for a year. Or I did that for a year, and then AOL came in and bought CNNSI out, so they shut the show down. I thought the show was a great show. I don't know if they shut it down or for what reason they shut it down, but I don't think it was because we were not good. They just were moving in a different direction. But anyway, after that, I worked a couple of years for a local network here, WPVI, Action News Channel 6.
Yeah.
And then the Lord called me to pastor a church. So I started a church in June of 2003, and I had retired in 2000 or the end of 2000. And I've been pastoring ever since. No people. I'm in my hometown. The church is in my hometown where I grew up, Mount Holly, New Jersey. So a lot of people know me around. And I end up getting in this business venture with this guy who was a fraternity brother of mine. So I blindly trusted him for a couple of reasons, because I've known him. I'd known him for a long time, and he was my fraternity brother. I don't know if you know anything about fraternities, but he's my fraternity brother. So he ended up getting into some illegal stuff, and my name got tied up into it. And because monies were exchanged between the two of us, I mean, the prosecutors do a great job, man, of making you look guilty. But you know what? It's still, when you go back and you look at the facts of the trial, there are still some things there that, you know, apparently, and I've never been trial before, just you learn as you go. You know, you're supposed to, if there's reasonable doubt, the prosecutor has to prove beyond a reasonable doubt their story. If there's any reasonable doubt, then you're supposed to, as the defendant, get the benefit of the doubt. That's the way.
Innocent till proven guilty.
No, that's not the way it runs in this country.
That's the way it's supposed to be, right?
No, that's not the way it runs. You are guilty until you prove yourself innocent.
Was it a complete surprise? I mean, it was a mortgage thing, right? Was it a complete surprise to you that you were a part of it, or you thought you were a part of it?
Yeah, yes, because
it was normal and innocent.
You have a couple of minutes. I can kind of run some of it down for you. Again, there's a guy that his name is Bill Barksdale. I don't mind saying his name because it's the truth. And we had done some things prior. You know, he was into housing and whatnot. So it was during that big housing market where a lot of people were taking houses, buying them at a low price, and, you know, fixing them up a little bit and then reselling them. So I had, he called me and asked me that he needed a couple of investors. So I knew people who were investors, and I got him a couple of investors. So he was paying me to put the deal together and, you know, getting some of the profit from the house, which is normal. That's not illegal. So that was going on. And so my mother got remarried. And when my mother remarried, my baby sister left home. I'm going somewhere with this story. When my sister left here.
Take your time. You're doing great.
When my sister left New Jersey, she left her house here. She rented it out to a couple of young teenagers, and they absolutely destroyed the house. So now she wanted to just get rid of it. Well, Barksdale's doing this, right? So she sold it to Barksdale. Barksdale took it over. He fixed it up, and he put my mother in there. My mother and her new husband, he put in the house, and he let her live there for about a year without paying any mortgage, paying any rent or anything. So Barksdale calls me one day and he says, Irving, listen, your mom's been in there. I let her stay there for, you know, a year now. I need to get a mortgage for her. She needs to get a mortgage. She's got good credit. I can take her around so she can get a mortgage, because he dealt with banks and stuff like that. That's how he was able to flip houses, because he had relationships with banks. He said, I can take her around and get a mortgage and have a mortgage on the house. I said, no problem at all. You know, yes. Thank you for letting her live there for a year. I'll call her and let her know you're going to come get her and take her so she can get a mortgage. So long story short, he takes her around to different banks, the banks that he has a relationship with, and has her fill out applications to get a loan. That's not illegal. Filling out several applications is not illegal. Taking them all when they're all approved is illegal. So when she had good credit. So he
got multiple mortgages on the same place. He pockets it.
Right. Yeah. And that's again, this is facts. It's fact that he got all that money.
How do you get caught up in that mess?
Well, let me finish.
I'm sorry. Yeah.
Let me finish.
My wife tells me I'm impatient all the time.
Let me finish. So here he gets all the mortgages. How he got the money from the mortgages when it was her filling out everything, I don't know, but it was proof right at the beginning of the trial that all of those monies went to his bank account. Now, he told my mother, when it was all said and done, after the mortgage, this is the mortgage you got approved for. This is where you pay your mortgage. You pay it to this bank. Well, come to find out during the trial, right before the trial, my mother lost her house. Why? Because she thought she was paying the mortgage on her house, but she was paying the mortgage on one of his other houses.
How many mortgages did he get on her house?
He got, I think it was 6 or 7.
And he never thought he was going to get caught?
I don't know I don't know.
Sounds like a bad plan.
But listen, he had done this before in Florida. Come to find out, he'd done this before in Florida. And he's back in prison now for doing the same thing again. So when we get to trial, and have you ever seen My Cousin Vinny?
Of course.
That's how my attorney was. The babbling guy. My attorney was a former federal prosecutor. He was absolutely awesome when it came to paperwork and putting stuff together. We're going to do this, we're going to do that. Absolutely awesome. When we got into the courtroom, he was a babbling idiot. Absolutely. Yeah. And that was my face. I'm like, oh my gosh. But even though he wasn't good, there were still things during the trial that just were obvious. Let me give you a fact. Okay.
Yeah.
Now here's what the state's case was. The state said that yes, Mr. Barksdale got the money from the mortgages. That's proven. They put all that paperwork up on the screens and whatnot. Yep, he got all the money. But these monies that Mr. Barksdale is paying out to people are people that you owe money to, Irving. So that's how we're tying you to this, because he's paying this money out of those accounts and he's paying it to people that you owe money to, because that's what Barksdale said. I'm like,
by coincidence?
So no. Wait now. So one of the guys that he paid money to, his name was Jerry Hostetter. Jerry Hostetter is a friend of mine, and Jerry Hostetter was one of the investors on one of those properties. Right. Okay. So yes, there was money going from Jerry to Barksdale, and then money going back from Barksdale to Jerry. So they're saying that I owe Jerry that money. Well, I brokered the deal. Jerry Hostetter came and he testified. Mr. Hostetter, is this money that Irving owed you? No, this is money that was paid back to me on an investment. That's what was said in court. You can go look it up. Please go look it up. That's what was said. I'm like, okay, cool. Yeah. All right. We're getting this straightened out. There was a bank president, one of the bank's presidents sat on the stand. And I don't know why he said this. I don't know if he was trying to keep himself out of it and maybe help me out because he knew I wasn't involved, or if he really is crazy. But the bank president said, because Barksdale had created these fake W-2 forms for my mother, saying that she was an event coordinator at the church and she made $90,000 a year. Now, mind you, our church didn't even get $90,000 a year. We're a small church, and I wasn't receiving a salary. I still don't receive a salary. I haven't received a salary at my church for 18 years. So nobody was getting any money, and surely not getting $90,000 a year. But there were these fake W-2 forms, which one of the W-2s said the New Jersey House of God. Our church's name is New Jerusalem House of God. And I'm so anal. If I were to do something like that, believe me, if I was trying to create a document like that, it would have been perfect. A perfect fake. So anyway, the W-2s and applications and that process is being talked about with this president of the bank. The president of the bank says, well, I tell my loan officers not to call anybody's place of work to check to see if they have a job because we just trust them. I tell my loan officers not to call anybody to check for an employment because we just trust our people. That's absolutely asinine.
He got fired after that.
Have you ever bought? I'm sure you have bought a house, and what they put you through to.
Yes.
They put you through hell trying to buy. It's brutal.
It's worse than packing and moving it.
And when he said that, I'm like, these people, you got to see this. There's some shenanigans going on here. What bank president sits and says, so then one of his employees, one of the loan officers sitting on the stand, and she says, and this is where my attorney screwed up. She says, well, I called Mrs. McGee and I talked to her. I remember her voice. Well, your boss just said he told y'all not to call.
Not to call.
Well, I talked to her to check for employment, and I remember her voice. So I'm thinking, okay, we got this made. So then watch this. Barksdale is on the stand. They have one of the applications up on the screen, and I'm looking at the application. I leaned over to my attorney. I said, "That's not my mother's number on the application. That's not her number." So my attorney asks Barksdale, Mr. Barksdale, this is the number that they would call on the application. Who is this number? Whose number is it? And Barksdale says, my number. He says, my number. I said, well, why is your number on Mrs. McGee's application? He said, because I wanted the loan officer to call me or to call Mr. Fryer instead of calling Mrs. McGee. So how, if that loan officer, see, this is me putting it together, and I was thinking the jury had enough sense to do this too, and you're doing it. So how, if she called Mrs. McGee, she called that number on the loan application, she didn't get Mrs. McGee, she would have gotten Barksdale. So somebody's lying.
Yes. So they're either not, they either are calling when they're not supposed to. And if they do call, they're getting Barksdale, not her. So let me ask you a question. Did they not?
Reasonable doubt.
Oh, yeah. Did they not, like, to me, if there's no money that's been wired to you or
there's
any
no
of
money,
your
there's no
account,
money that came to me. And
then
you
how
know
are
what?
you guilty?
I don't know.
Like, what did they tell you as to?
That's why you know what? That's why I didn't testify, because it was so obvious to me. And my attorney, I should have testified, but because of some of these things like this, it was so obvious. I didn't get on the stand. I didn't feel like I needed to, but apparently, you know, there were times I would look over the jury and there was a couple of people that were asleep. There were times, and they didn't allow them to, and this is a flaw in the system. They didn't allow them to take notes. The trial was 3 weeks. They didn't allow any juror to take notes. How can they remember or put anything together without taking notes? There were times some of them were asleep. And Barksdale said when he was on the stand, Mrs. McGee didn't have anything to do with this. That's what he said. But they still found my mother.
The judge told you afterward.
They found my mother guilty still. Yeah, and right before she sentenced me, she said, Mr. Fryer would have found you innocent. But
the jury found you guilty.
Mm-hmm.
How long were you in prison for?
I got a 5-year sentence. I stayed in prison for 8 months because I had no priors or anything like that. And I automatically qualified for a program called ISP, Intensive Supervision Program. It's a little bit different from probation. Well, obviously different probation, and it's much different from parole. So I was out in 8 months. Actually, I was eligible in 5 months, and I went before the judge, one of the ISP judges, at 5 months. But she said to me, you haven't suffered enough, and sent me back to prison. So I stayed in prison for another 90 days, and then I got out. I was ordered to have 2 jobs. And I was on ISP for 21 months after I got out. I was ordered to have 2 jobs. The first job, they took 20% of my check after taxes. And the second job, they took 100% of my check. I did that for 21 months.
So bring me to today. All this stuff that you've been through. And
I'm a lot.
And you're very positive, and you're giving back to your community. What gets you up in the morning?
Well, trust me, I have not days, but I have good moments and I have bad moments. I do. Because I realize now, and I guess what makes it even harder is that I'm innocent of the crime that I was convicted and sentenced for. I mean, because had I done it, heck, I would have made a deal and not gone to prison. You know? So I guess that's really the hardest part of it for me to swallow. And also because in my prayer time, the Lord told me, go to trial. Okay, Lord, I'm going to trial. I'm still yet to see what exactly he's got in store with all of this. But when you're in prison, and this is something that only those of us who have a felony, only those of us who have been convicted and sentenced and sent to prison for any period of time, when we come out, we have that stamp on our back. Only these people will understand this. We do hard time while we're in prison. And listen, anybody who's listening, I'm not whining. I'm not complaining. I'm not. Okay, I'm just giving you facts.
Yeah.
You do hard time while you're in prison, but then you come out. When you do get out, you do soft time for the rest of your life.
Well, we're living in cancel culture too. So on top of not being a forgiving people, where here you are somebody who's been through, whether you agree with what you've been through in terms of that particular prison sentence. If you think it's BS or not, you went through it.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And look at what you do now. Look at who you give back to. Look at, so I don't know. We need to be a more forgiving society, in my opinion. That's for darn sure.
Well, yeah. And, we all have to live our own journey. We all have to answer to God when it's all said and done. And I can say, truly, I may not have been able to say this about 6 years ago when I first got out of prison, but I can truly say I'm better. I've grown because of that situation. There are a lot of people, man, and this is one of the harder parts of it as well, that experience. But there are a lot of people who walked out of my life and who threw salt while they were walking out of my life, who I would have done anything for. I thought our relationships were reciprocal, but obviously and evidently, they were non-reciprocal. And I just really felt foolish that I cared about other people that really didn't care about me. Because I'm with you, like Cliff.
Well, you learn about people during times of adversity.
Ooh,
that's when your true character is revealed.
Yeah.
And it's the same for every walk of life with it.
Yeah. And people, here's the thing about it. And I almost got caught up in this when I first got out of prison, doing things for people, trying to get them to accept me, to like me. People who care about you, people who are concerned about you, people who reciprocate in a relationship with you, they do that because of their character. If their character doesn't cause them to care about you, I don't care what you do, they're not going to care about you.
Right.
So I've learned that who they are is really that's what makes the difference.
Yeah. Irving, I could go on for another hour. I hope I can have you back on the podcast another time. I've really enjoyed it.
You got my number, Mike. Come on.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's been awesome getting to know you. I really appreciate your time.
Not a problem.
Really appreciated hearing your story and wish you nothing but the best and look forward to seeing you down the road.
Hey, Mike, I appreciate it. Thank you for the opportunity and thank you for listening, man. I've talked most of the second half.
I've loved it. And by the way, if you want to hear more, and I know I do, if you want to hear more from Irving, the Fryar Place podcast every Friday at noon on YouTube, FRYAR.
Yes.
Make sure you check that out. And make sure you check out more of the Killing Me Smalls podcast as well. Listen, subscribe, and definitely subscribe to the Painted Lines, and you get a lot more. Thanks, everybody. And Irving, thanks again.
Thank you, Mike. Appreciate you.